All right, let's talk about DORA. If you're in tech or finance, I bet you've heard this acronym popping up everywhere lately. It sounds super important, right? But here's the thing. It's causing a ton of mix-ups. And why is that? Well, it's because DORA can mean two completely, totally different things. And that right there is the big question we're going to tackle. You know that feeling. You're sitting in a meeting, everyone's nodding along about DORA compliance, and you're thinking one thing, while the person next to you is on a totally different planet. It happens. So, let's finally get this sorted out once and for all.
Okay, so here are the two culprits. In one corner, we have the Digital Operational Resilience Act. That's a big official European Union regulation. And in the other corner, DevOps Research and Assessment, a framework all about making tech teams faster and better. See what I mean? Same name, totally different universes. Let's dive into the first one, the regulation.
So, this first DORA, the best way to think about it is like an official rulebook. It's a set of mandatory, must-follow rules aimed squarely at the financial world. We're talking about making sure the whole system is stable. And yeah, this isn't a suggestion. For the companies it affects, it's the law.
So what's actually in this rulebook? Well, the name kind of gives it away. It's all about resilience. The act basically says to banks, insurance companies, and investment firms, you name it, that they have to prove they can take a punch. They need to be able to withstand, respond to, and get back up from any kind of tech-related problem. I'm talking everything from a massive cyber attack all the way down to a server just deciding to quit on a Tuesday.
Okay, sounds straightforward enough, right? But here's where it gets tricky. Following a rulebook is a piece of cake when the rules are crystal clear. The problem with this DORA is that a lot of organizations feel like they're just lost in a fog trying to figure it out.
And what's at the heart of that fog? It really boils down to one simple but frustrating question. Okay, is this thing you're telling me to do something I legally have to do to be compliant, or is it just, a good idea? That gray area, that uncertainty between a hard mandate and just a best practice, that is a massive roadblock for these teams.
So this regulatory fog really creates a few key headaches. First, just what we said, teams are struggling to tell the difference between you must do this and you should probably do this. Then there's the whole how literally do we take this question. Is this a big picture principle we need to follow or a super specific, detailed action we need to take? And of course, the classic problem, you've got this dense legal document and you have to somehow turn that into a clear, actionable plan. It's a huge translation job.
All right, let's hit the brakes and switch gears completely. We're done with the rulebook. Now, let's talk about the other DORA. And if the first one was a rulebook, this one is a playbook. This has nothing to do with legal compliance. This is all about performance. It's a guide, backed by years of research, designed to help software teams become absolute rock stars.
So what's in this playbook? Well, it's all about measuring what matters so you can get better. It's famous for zeroing in on 4 key metrics. Things like how often you deploy code, how fast you can make a change, how quickly you can fix things when they break, and how often your changes cause problems. The whole idea is to use this data to see what the best of the best are doing and then help everyone else learn from them.
But, just like the other DORA, this playbook isn't without its own challenges. And the absolute biggest one is what I like to call data chaos. See, to make any of these metrics useful, you need good, clean, accurate data. And actually getting your hands on that data, oh man, it is often a super messy, super complicated nightmare.
So why all the chaos? Well, just think about it. The information you need is spread out all over the place. Your actual code changes are living over here in Git. Your project management and tickets are in Jira. And when things go wrong, your incident alerts are firing in PagerDuty. None of these tools were really built to talk to each other, so you end up with these isolated islands of data.
And what does that lead to? You guessed it, people spending hours and hours manually pulling reports, copy and pasting data into spreadsheets. It's just a time sink. It's slow, it's super easy to make mistakes, and worst of all, you never get a real-time picture of what's going on. By the time you see the numbers, they're already old news. You're always driving by looking in the rearview mirror. And you know what? The data problem is really just the tip of the iceberg. Getting this DORA playbook right is often less about the tools and technology and way more about the people. It forces you to deal with some really tough cultural stuff. You've got to get people on board with the change, make sure you're not using these metrics to punish people, and actually break down those walls between teams that slow everything down.
Okay, so let's zoom out and put a bow on this. When you hear that acronym, DORA, it really just comes down to one thing. What's the goal? The act is all about stability. It's a top-down mandatory rule for protecting an entire industry. The framework, on the other hand, is all about performance. It's a bottom-up, optional playbook for helping your team level up. And that really brings us to the final question, the one for you to think about. In your day-to-day world, which DORA is the bigger deal right now? Is the main conversation about resilience, making sure you're secure, you're compliant, you're following the rules? Or is it all about performance, shipping better software faster and more reliably? Because knowing which DORA you're actually talking about, well, that's the first and most important step to solving the right problem.